Hello and welcome back to Talking Africa. This is the weekly edition of Africa Wrap dedicated to in-depth interviews and analysis. We aim to speak to key decision makers and thought leaders, the people who really know the emerging continent. Well, one such man is undoubtedly Muhammadu Buhari, the man who, subject to debate over security and other issues, will contest next month's Nigerian general election, the challenger to President Goodluck Jonathan. I was invited to meet him in Nigeria to discuss his policies and his chances of taking his all-progressive Congress party to power for the first time since civilian rule was restored in 1999. This is your third or fourth bid for the presidency in Nigeria, and all of them have ended in failure. Why are you running again?
Yeah, well, the rest, they failed, as you said, and we ended up in the Supreme Court of Nigeria. So the cases are now public documents. One can go and get them. We have attempted, and we are going to attempt again for the fourth time, if my party give me the ticket.
Right, but the question is, why are you doing it again?
Yes, because I have been approached by my supporters. At some stage, after the third attempt, I think I will not attempt again. But my supporters said they want me to attempt again, and I agreed, because once I remain in partisan politics, then I have to do what the majority of my supporters want me to do.
What do you think the attraction for you is?
Just to measure the true support I have from the public if the election is credible.
Do you believe that the elections will be credible?
I'm trying to get that. We are trying to mobilize our supporters that they make sure the election is credible by speaking to INEC, by making sure those our agents are up to the task, by getting communication so that they can get from polling unit, they can get to to other polling units and so on, passing out information as the result comes out to collation areas and so on.
What do you think is the big hot button issue in Nigeria today that needs to be urgently addressed?
Security.
And how would you address that security situation?
Well, we hope we will understand the true situation of the security other than the obvious ones. And then we quickly see how we can remove it. But the question of security is number one, and the insecurity has to be removed to move forward with Nigeria.
And by insecurity, I presume you're talking about Boko Haram.
Not only Boko Haram. There are abductions throughout Nigeria. Company executives are being abducted, and impossible amounts being demanded. Senior citizens across the country are being abducted. For political, mostly for money, extortion of money. So people are feeling very, very insecure.
Now, obviously, one of the big issues in Nigeria today is the question of Boko Haram and the insurgency in the north. As you mentioned there, it's a hot-button issue. How would you deal with that insurgency?
I think the first thing is intelligence. We must have the government's ability to collect intelligence, credible intelligence, and prepare operations accordingly is very, very important. You go into the field without knowing who is the enemy, I think is a terrible mistake.
Do you think this current government is unwilling or unable to do that? Do you think the army has been so depleted in terms of its resources that it just doesn't have the capacity to gather the intelligence, and it wouldn't make any difference whether it's this government or you in power?
I think the government's failure to motivate the military to effectively deal with the insurgents is extremely disappointing, because Nigeria is so resourceful, both human and material, that Nigeria can really secure itself. But this failure, I am afraid, cannot be explained. It cannot be explained other than incompetence of the government. It's sheer incompetence of the government.
Now, the Nigerian military and the government say they're doing their best to protect the citizens in the northeast. Do you think their best is good enough?
Certainly their best is not good enough, because the insecurity is getting overwhelming.
Do you not agree, though, that in matters like this insurgency, it takes a lot of time and lots of effort to achieve a durable peace?
Well, it's unfortunate Nigerian Boko Haram has been allowed to develop into the type of insurgencies in other countries we mentioned now, because those who are following the development of Boko Haram started from the incompetence of policing that area. And that's what has stated, the policing of the area. And policing means real intelligence.
The Emir of Kano called on people to defend themselves against Boko Haram. He urged citizens to acquire what they need to protect themselves. Do you support that call, or do you think that, like some skeptics, that it is a call to anarchy?
No, I support the Emir, because if you are those who are closely following the operations of Boko Haram, if Borno State government did not develop the JTF, the civilians,
that's the Joint Task Force.
Just Joint Task Force, the capital could have been overrun by now, because the pattern of Boko Haram operation is to secure a base in the northeast, preferably Borno, a state capital with airport, with the communication and so on, and then fan outwards. But when the leadership, the civilian leadership in Borno State encouraged the youth to look after their environments and so on, they relegate the Boko Haram to the peripheral, and to the neighboring states. So really, what the Emir of Kano said was what was tried in Borno State and has worked.
Wherever and whatever your banking needs, Guarantee Trust Bank will be there, now and into the future. Because you're at the heart of everything we do. Guarantee Trust Bank, proudly African, truly international.
What do you think motivates Boko Haram? Is it religious fanaticism or a protest and government neglect?
No, it's a politicians that look for unemployed youth, give them weapons and drugs, and send them after their political enemies. And then subsequently they got out of hand. This is how the Boko Haram developed.
Now, you were quoted as saying that an attack on Boko Haram was an attack on the entire northern region of Nigeria. For many of your critics, that was the clearest indication that you were sympathetic to the insurgents. And as a matter of fact, that same brush has apparently also tarred the leadership of your party, the APC, because people perceive them to be in cahoots with the insurgents. Do you regret making that statement, or do you still stand by it?
Yes, well, I didn't make such a statement. What was the statement I made that was misinterpreted was when the military operated in Baga and Bama in the northeast, and I told them that if soldiers, if the civilians in a certain area killed a policeman or a soldier, the military or the police should display restraint. They will try and find out the leadership of the individuals, not to go and raise down a whole part of a town, killing everything that moves and burning the houses. That was what I said, and I still stand by that. The military must show restraint. Try and look at what happened at the initial stage of Boko Haram. When the police couldn't handle it, according to our internal security internal operation of Nigeria, they handed it over to the army. The army in charge then, you know, they went and got Yusuf, who was the leader of Boko Haram, and they handed him over to the police according to law. But he died in police custody. He was killed in police custody. His in-law was killed. Their houses were razed down. While everybody knew the right thing was to interrogate him, prosecute him, and punish him. That would have doused, you know, the tension, and the insurgency wouldn't have been blown up. But to be to kill leadership, even if it were of insurgents, you know, make the insurgents more encouraged, you know, to commit even more atrocities.
Yeah, but you yourself don't exactly have a reputation for being someone who operates within democratic mores. I mean, your experience of governance in Nigeria was from the position of a military dictatorship. You led a military dictatorship in 1983, and you actually went into prison, pulled people out who had already been tried in court and sentenced to prison terms for carrying drugs, and ordered them to be shot.
Well, that allegation could be true, but I didn't go to prison. But I accept leadership to be accused of final decision of government. But the government decided then that all those who trafficked in drug should be executed.
Yeah, but it was a dictatorship. You led the dictatorship.
Yes, I did.
So it came from you.
I did. Well, it's not individualistic. Even in the dictatorship, we have a system. We have a Supreme Military Council. We have a Council of State that comprises the governors.
There are also people who say that you've never actually been in a democratic setting, that you've come from the tradition of military dictatorships. I mean, how would you, for instance, deal with a National Assembly that asks questions about what you plan to do?
They have a choice. The Constitution of Nigeria in 1998 is amended. That was the guideline. So Nigerians have a choice. And what we are asking now is for a free, fair, and credible election. So let Nigerians be given the opportunity to choose their leaders.
There have been a number of incidents involving the opposition and what appear to be elements from the security services, including the attempt to stop the Speaker of the House, who's a member of your party, from entering the National Assembly, and a recent raid on the APC's offices in Lagos. Do you think these are overt attempts to muzzle the opposition as we approach the elections? And do you attribute those raids on the ruling People's Democratic Party, or to the ruling People's Democratic Party?
Well, once the security agencies act outside the constitutional, their constitutional law, then they must have been ordered by the executive. But certainly, it's unconstitutional for the National Assembly to be physically attacked, as we all saw. So, those who are supposed to protect and guard the Constitution are violating it now. So we are already in a state of anarchy.
How much does that concern you going into the elections?
Well, this has to be drummed into Nigerian heads that this government is already acting unconstitutional. And the safest thing for them is to vote it out.
Do you expect that this election is going to be free and fair?
Yes, I do. That's why I'm spending so much time on it. If it is not free and fair, then we shall see.
What happens if it's not, if your people, because what I'm trying to look at is what appears to be a custom. I mean, every single time that you've run and you have lost, you've accused the other party of rigging the elections and of the elections not being free and fair. And in fact, the last time, if I recall, there was almost an uprising in the north of Nigeria as a result of the fact that you said the elections, that you'd been rigged out. That clearly was a major security threat to this country, given the fragility of the situation right now. What would you say to your supporters about abiding the same rule of law that you talk about, sticking to the rule of law and not going out in riots and so on, and to follow the constitutional means of going to a court of law to determine whether you lost or not?
If I don't believe in the rule of law, would I, for 3 successive times, lasting several years, go to court and ending up in the Supreme Court in each case, having do the field work, collect our data, and confront the court with it? Don't forget, in 2007, the Supreme Court was split into 2, the justices. There were 7 justices. 3 justices said that the election were not conducted according to law. So they have annulled it. 3 other justices said, yes, there were flaws, in the election, but that wouldn't have stopped the ruling party from winning. And then the Chief Justice cast his vote with them. So I believe in the rule of law. This is why I ended up in court up to Supreme Court. In each case, I was alleged to have lost, and the records are there.
Do you also believe that there is a religious element in politics in Nigeria, and that because you're a Muslim and from the north, that every time that you run and you fail to win, it is seen as an attack on Muslim people in this country?
No, I think Nigeria has believed that according to the Constitution, Nigerians can practice any religion they want. That's guaranteed by the Nigerian Constitution. And anybody who does not believe in that, then he will either walk out of Nigeria or go to Nigerian Supreme Court to see if he can effect change. But as is a very big but, the government in power must be seen to be respecting and protecting the Constitution instead of subverting it.
I'm not entirely sure I understand what you mean.
What happened in the National Assembly is not subversion of the Constitution. How can you go into the National Assembly and fire tear gas? That institution is sacred.
Yeah, but that didn't happen the last time you ran for office. I mean, what I'm trying to say, this is a recent development.
Yeah, but what we are talking of the next election. If the government will subvert the constitution itself, then how are we sure the government will respect the processes of credible election?
What would happen if you lose the elections? Do you think the North would rise up against the country, the rest of the country?
I'm not contesting as a Muslim Northerner. I'm contesting as a Nigerian member of a Nigerian party, the All Progressive Congress. So to try to give it a northern or Islamic touch, I think is very unfair to the system itself.
There's been what appears to be a vigorous attempt by the Central Bank of Nigeria and Finance Ministry officials to reassure the public over the dramatic fall in oil prices and its potential knock-on effect on the Nigerian economy. Many Nigerians believe that some sort of economic crisis is looming on the back of the oil price slump and the subsequent fall in the value of the naira. Now, if you were president, how would you react to that crisis and what appears to be austere times ahead?
I think we have to cut down wastages. That has to be said that the government has to sit down and articulate a policy that will not hurt its own economic activities. The most important thing, let us get the structure once more led by power, and let's encourage manufacturing so that employment and goods and services, will be available.
But these are obviously long-term things. I mean, you can't wave a magic wand and manufacturing.
No, you can't.
What would you do in the short term?
In the short term is to certainly see where you can effect savings, wastages in government, especially in terms of fleet of vehicles, use of petroleum products and so on, and use more of communication, which is highly advanced now, and less movement. And then try and see how much you can quickly do through two sources that I believe will cut down unemployment. That's agriculture and solid minerals. Put the unemployed, able-bodied youth into the field. That can be done very quickly. The land is available. There is infrastructure. There are a number of dams. And the irrigation system is waiting to be developed, and putting people into the fields throughout there instead of seasonal farming and so on.
But are you suggesting that agriculture isn't being dealt with? Because, I mean, this government has been commended not just in Nigeria but internationally for what it's done with agriculture and the fact that it's received awards, in fact, huge commendation. I mean, are you saying that that is too little, not enough, or
Yes.
they're not doing anything at all?
No, we can't say they are not doing anything at all, but much more can be done. Much more can be done in agriculture and solid minerals.
The other major issue in Nigeria is, of course, corruption. How would you deal with corruption?
It's getting worse because people that are corrupt, they are considered that they have made it, whether they invest in or outside the country, and how they flout their riches in the middle of pauperized people.
But is that something that's happening with this current government, or is that something that has come from the past?
It's not good enough. Much more can be done to stop corruption. Much more can be done.
So what would you do?
What to do? We'll tell the public, especially the institutions that handle national resources, that our tolerance for corruption is zero, absolutely zero.
Let's talk a little bit about your person, your personality, and the perceptions of the sort of person that you are. I mean, people say that you're out of touch with a modern age. I mean, you're over 70 years old. There's some, particularly young people, think that you're too old and that you don't understand the age of computers. Christians say that you're a hardline fundamentalist. What would your response be to those perceptions of you?
If my party gives me the ticket, then people, based on their own assessment and understanding of me as a candidate, they should vote or reject me. That is the beauty of this system.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that what would your response be? I mean, you can't just say that. People want to hear from you to know whether or not they should decide to vote for you or not, assuming you win the ticket of the APC. I mean, what would your response be to people who, for instance, say that you're out of touch with the modern world, that you're too old, and therefore you're not really familiar with the way that the computer age has actually evolved in the 21st century?
Well, what have they done with their computer age? The president, head of state, president, how old is he?
Well, he's in his 50s. You're in your 70s.
Yes. Then how is the government doing? How has this government been doing? It's not a question of ICT qualification that makes a good leadership. I have experienced all these developments. We try and find out how is this country earned under the leadership of the ruling party and the state of the infrastructure. There is no way our industries can break even when there is no power. There is no way our industries can employ people and produce goods if parts of the country are in the hands of terrorists. So this country has woefully, this government has woefully failed. The ruling party, PDP, has woefully failed this country.
There's been talk of infighting within the APC, your party, and people say that this could possibly lead to an even bigger problem for the rest of Nigeria, because if you're all fighting each other, I mean, your party could quite easily implode. What's your reaction to that?
I think they have to give the system a chance. The system provides that if you don't provide a consensus, if you don't provide a consensus, you can have primaries which we are conducting throughout the country so that people can go and elect those that will stand to be elected at various levels, whether House of Assembly, Representative, Senate, governorship of the presidency. So the system has taken that into account. So it's up to the people that feel strongly about the system to organize themselves and present their case through their delegates, through their candidates. I think the system is very good.
Finally, General Buhari, what is your message to the Nigerian people?
I have nothing new to tell the Nigerian people other than the things they know and they are experiencing. The insecurity, the lack of jobs, and the corruption in this country. And people can reflect and find out that there are credible feature article readers that said, unless Nigerians kill corruption, corruption will kill Nigeria.
General Buhari, thank you very much indeed for talking to Arise News.